The prototype pattern is another well-known design pattern. It involves creating new objects by copying an existing object, known as the prototype. This pattern is particularly useful when the cost of creating a new instance of the object is expensive or complex. In this tutorial, this is what we will create. As you can see, it displays a list of books, but if I click on the clone button will then copy the books as a new instance of the object that we're using at the moment. As you can see, the original book instance has been cloned, and now we have a copy that includes a list of books, the same list of books that we have here in this list. So here's a duplicate copy. This is the original within the top list, and this is the copy within the bottom list. Within your SwiftUI project, the first thing we need to do is to create a new struct. The name of the struct will be called books. Now let's define our struct. Struct books identifiable. Let ID equals UUID to enable each book to have its own unique ID. Var name string. Var author string. Var image name string. Var price string. The next thing we need to do is add another new file called booklist. Booklist. Import the following. SwiftUI. Import observation. You need those two following frameworks. And then we need to create a protocol. Protocol clonable. A protocol defines a blueprint of the methods, properties, and other requirements that the functionality needs. So to create a protocol, the first thing being done is to declare a protocol name. And then the next thing we need to do is to create the function signature within the protocol. Func clone self. So this means that any class or struct that adopts the clonable protocol must implement this method, and it also ensures that it returns an instance of the same type. by using the self keyword. The next thing we need to do is to add observable, and then create our class book list, implements clonable, our protocol, and then we can add our stubs to our protocol, which are the empty method functions. We'll implement that later. So the next thing we need to do is to create our data property that will store a list of books within the array. And then we need to create our required init method. The required keyword ensures that any subclass must implement this initializer. The next thing we need to do is to add a required convenience initializer for cloning. Required init data books self.data equals data. So what we've done there, we assign the path in data to the data array property of the instance. Our data was spelled incorrectly on line 21, so we need to remove the E. That should be data. And now what we need to do is to create our fetch function. And the purpose of the fetch function is to simulate an API call that will contain a list of books func fetch. So it's the same list of books that we've been using, or that we used within the previous tutorials. I already have the list of books on a clipboard, so I just paste it instead of like typing it out again. As you can see, it's the same list as I mentioned before, same list of books. So now what we need to do is to implement our clone function. So the clone function needs to return the following: return type of self init data self data. So on line 40, type of self returns the dynamic type of the current instance. And then it creates a new instance of the same type using the same data. So this is what this line does, or this function, the whole function, that's what it does. That's how it does the cloning. Now I'll just compile it just to make sure it's okay. The next file we need to create is our book list view. And the purpose of the book list view is to display a list of books. So we need to create a new SwiftUI file. And then type in book list view. The next thing we can do is start to implement our view. Var books book list The next thing we need to do is to add a navigation view after line 13. Navigation view. And now we can add our list to contain the books that we want to be displayed on the screen. Book in, that's within our closure, hstack alignment dot top spacing 10. Image book dot image name. I'm just going to see if the previews are working because my MacBook is very slow. image name, dot resizable, frame. So the size of the image will be, for the width, it will be 80 pixels in width and for the height it will be 120 pixels high. Corner radius, it will have curvy corners, so we just set it to 8. And that should be books and not book. Let's see if it's going to display anything on the preview. And I need a bracket on line 17. And yeah, we can delete our hello world text element. Okay, I won't bother with the preview, I'll just leave it. So the next thing we need to do is to add the VStack alignment dot leading spacing 5. And then we want to display our book name. For the font type, we just use dot title. Font weight, just use dot bold. And for the author, type in book author. Font type, dot subheadline. Add a spacer. And then for the book price, book.price, dot headline for the font, foreground color, dot orange. After lines 36, type in dot padding, dot vertical 5. And then after line 41, we just add our navigation bar title. For the title, we just called it book list. Display mode, dot large, or large caption. And then we just use a plain list style. List style. plane. And then after line 44, just add some padding. I'll just compile it. It's just building at the moment. In next week's tutorial, we will implement our content view so that our content view calls our book list view that we just created. And our content view will need to have a few buttons as well to perform the actual cloning of the objects. The prototype pattern is another well-known design pattern. It involves creating new objects by copying an existing object, known as the prototype. This pattern is particularly useful when the cost of creating a new instance of the object is expensive or complex. In this tutorial, this is what we will create. As you can see, it displays a list of books, but if I click on the clone button will then copy the books as a new instance of the object that we're using at the moment. As you can see, the original book instance has been cloned, and now we have a copy that includes a list of books, the same list of books that we have here in this list. So here's a duplicate copy. This is the original within the top list, and this is the copy within the bottom list. Within our content view, we will call the methods in the prototype pattern to populate and clone our list. So the first thing we need to do is to create a new instance of the book list class at state private var original books equals book list. And we need to do the same thing to create a clone books instance. Private var cloned books book list, which can be optional. We can delete line 16, add a VStack, and then we use our book list view that we created in the previous tutorial. We pass the original book list to the book list view. Dot on appear. Original books dot fetch. So it calls the fetch method. Next thing we need to do is to add our button. And the purpose of this button is to enable the user to clone the book list or not. Clone books equals original books.clone. As you can see, the clone method is the actual function that does the copying. Clone book list for the caption, for the text element, padding, background color, which is blue, foreground color, which is white, so that's for white text, corner radius 8, on line 23 I missed out a colon, so there should be a colon there. Dot padding, if let clone books equals clone books, so if there's something to clone, then do the following. Clone book list, dot font, title, padding, book list view, clone books. Now I'll just run it to see if it works or not. Just compiling. As you can see, this is our list. It contains a single list of books. If I click on the clone button, you'll see two lists, one at the top and one at the bottom. As you can see, our book object has been cloned and the copy is visible within the second list. And this is the original list, the one at the top. So that's how you use the prototype pattern to clone objects within SwiftUI. Thank you for joining us. If you found this tutorial helpful, please comment, like and subscribe. See you next week.